Yeah, so once we have completed the session, you will be receiving a recording of this as well. Any questions that you have, I would highly recommend using the Q&A versus the chat, just because there's a large volume of us here tonight, and sometimes your questions can be lost. In the chat versus the Q&A. So please feel free to ask any questions as they arise. Yes, it can be focused on resumes, but anything else that you might be noticing, there are probably others who are experiencing the same thing as well. So this is definitely a safe space for you to receive that support. We will also be going over any future sessions as well. So every Wednesday is usually when they host these types of seminars. So you'll be able to see what is coming up, and hopefully there's another workshop that you will be attending. So just a little bit about Devant. So we have supported over 54,000 international students and newcomers with getting hired. It's free advice from a lot of the career coaches. There's, if you go to the website, we'll put that in the chat. There's a good amount of us. Devant is one of, I have worked in the field for some time now, and I remember hearing about what Devant was doing with AI, and honestly, to me, they were ahead of the game compared to a lot of other employment service providers. They were not capitalizing and using AI just yet. So Devant is definitely up there when it comes to that. And then a lot of the work that they do is introductions to partners, and they do work very closely with your colleges as well. So our agenda tonight, we will be going over some best practices for resume writing. We'll very briefly touch on the Devant resume tools. We'll go over with the Get Hired at Home. There's some information and a few slides towards the end in regards to that, and we will also have some time for Q&A. So we'll answer throughout the presentation as well, but if you do have any other questions that have not been answered yet, you will have the opportunity to go ahead and ask away. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's just jump right into it. So in terms of best practices for resume writing, so over the last few years, we've seen so many changes with what is expected from us as job seekers, cover letters in terms of interviews, screening questions. There are things that are constantly changing. I remember when I was job searching, it was common practice to provide your entire address, not just the city that you live in, but even up to the, unit, an apartment or condo number that you were living at. So now I would probably highly recommend for you to remove that information from your application and your resume, and only provide the city and province in which you are living in. So we really do want to limit the personal information that we're providing on our resume. I used to see some resumes that discuss, your status in the country. Like people will put like PR or citizen, or sometimes they will put like marital status on there. So I know that is a common practice in different countries for sure, but it's not necessarily a requirement over here. Next, we want to focus on accomplishments rather than tasks. So this is a huge one that I've seen in resumes, and it's definitely hard to sometimes rewire your brain to say, what is the employer looking for? What will they expect from me and want from me? Another thing that I really enjoy seeing on resumes is numbers. So if it is possible for us to quantify, it's going to make a huge difference in, what the employer is seeing. So if you're saying, maybe you are working in admin or customer service, instead of saying, call to resolve issues, right? Maybe you want to put a number to that. You want to attach a number to that. Maybe at the end of the call, there's a survey that gets sent out to the client, and then, how many of those surveys came back with positive feedback. You can share that number as well. You can quantify that as well, that, you know, 85% survey results said that you were, helpful. Something like that. We can definitely work on it a little bit more, but just try to think of some numbers. And try to attach, some volume to the work that you were doing. It really helps the employer understand what you were doing, the scope of work, and it helps paint a better and more accurate picture. Next, the third one on there is create a tailored resume for each job posting. So I know that this requires a lot of extra time on your end to create, a new resume for each job and, go through the entire tailoring process, which means looking at the summary, looking at your highlights, your work experience, keywords from the posting. So it definitely is time consuming. This is where I would probably encourage you to focus on quality over quantity. So if, someone in the chat says, I'm applying for 50 jobs a week and I haven't had any interviews. I'm extremely concerned because no way we should be submitting 50 jobs a week. And then out of those 50, if you're not even at least getting a phone call or a pre-screening call, that tells me let's go back to the drawing board and, revisit your strategies when it comes to this. A lot of companies are also using ATS, which stands for Applicant Tracking System. So that's why we really, really want to stress and highlight the importance of having a different resume for each one of these jobs. So the people who are spending the extra 15, 20 minutes to tailor for each role are the ones who are getting the callbacks, right? So there's no shortcuts. As much as we might want that when it comes to job searching, there are no shortcuts. It definitely involves work on your end, but I promise it will pay off because we're only looking for one yes, right? We're only looking for one person to, give us that offer for us to be content and continue to take it from there. Next is be concise. So 1 to 2 pages is enough. So I know sometimes, depending on who you may speak with, maybe you have a friend, a cousin, an ex-colleague, they will probably give you different advice. Everyone has their own personal biases when it comes to resumes. Um, and they may say three, they may say four. I've seen resumes that are 7 pages sometimes. So please try to keep it to at least 2 pages max. I think that's kind of the sweet spot. If you find, okay, well, I've had too many jobs, then you can kind of tailor what responsibilities you want to focus on depending on the types of roles you were doing, right? So I'm wondering if we have any questions so far, or Katerina, if you have anything that you want to throw in there in terms of best practices.
We just got one
Mm-hmm.
question here. So with a multi-resume approach, how do I go about LinkedIn? For example, an HR professional can work in various positions, admin role, coaching, benefits, etc. Thanks. I can take this. So when it comes to as an HR professional, yes, you do have different tasks and responsibilities, but usually like everything will fall like under HR. So if you, let's say, had like a coaching job, right? Like you were like a coach or like a training, like facilitator, maybe like you work like in benefits, right? If those are like separate jobs where you had like the title, like benefit specialist or like training specialist or like you were like an HR admin, if those are like separate jobs, yes, you put them on your resume. But if you did all of these responsibilities into one job, which was maybe HR assistant or HR coordinator, you just put bullet points and you include them in your small blurb about that job experience. Another thing is, like Tiffany mentioned, you need to read the job description because you will see like a lot of same job titles, but the responsibilities might be different. So I'm going to use an HR coordinator. You might see like roles where the HR coordinator will be heavily responsible for recruitment, and we will have maybe some like office admin, HR admin on the side. So let's say if you were an HR coordinator in your previous job and you like were responsible for benefits and training and development, honestly, if you're applying to this job that recruitment is the main task, then you only need to include your like recruitment experience. Adding benefits, it won't like do anything for the hiring manager because benefits is already covered by somebody else. So I'm just like trying to understand, Caroline, it's whether you're saying that in one job you did all of this like tasks and responsibilities, or you had as an HR professional different job experience where you did some training, maybe you were like working on benefits on, and those are like two different jobs. But if it's just one, you just like put all of those bullet points in one experience, and you do the same thing on LinkedIn. Another thing that I wanted to add, if some of you have a lot of experience and you cannot include it in the resume, I will keep the experience in the less, I would say 5 years probably, because trends are changing, technology is changing so fast. So the skills that you learned like 5 years ago might not apply today, right? So if you want to still keep your experience on the resume, I personally have a section on my resume that it's called earlier roles, and I just include the job title, the date, and the company name. I don't like provide any bullet points or explanation, but literally it's in there so the employer can see that the experience that I kind of like explain what I do, it's not my only experience, right? They will know that I have like 7 years of experience, but I only have my last two jobs because I've been with the companies for over like 3-4 years, right? So like those are the jobs that I include where I provide examples and bullet points, but the rest of my experience is under a section called earlier roles, and I just include the job title and the company name and the dates. So you can do that if you don't want to remove that from your resume and still keep up to 2 pages.
Amazing. Thank you for that. We have another question in the Q&A. So it says, I'm in digital marketing. Shall I include my portfolio link in my resume? Absolutely. If you have the option to showcase your work, whether it's in digital marketing, whether you are a data analyst, a business analyst, please ensure that you have a portfolio that is locked and loaded, ready to go to share with the employer. And then if you have a LinkedIn profile that is also up to date, I would encourage you to post this information on there as well. When your network likes your post, when they comment on your post, it would also get shared to anyone that they are connected with, and it will show up on their feed that, oh, Katerina commented on my post. And if she has 5,000 connections, if they're scrolling through their timeline, they will also see, my profile, and they will see, my banner and picture. So yeah, if you have a portfolio available, please ensure that it is on your resume. One thing I would say is, instead of providing like an entire URL, some people copy paste, you see all these letters and numbers on the header or the banner. Just make sure you have, maybe you type portfolio and you hyperlink and then link it to your website or whichever source you're using rather than putting the whole link. That's a common mistake that I see. And it just takes away from your resume, right? I'm focused on like, why did they put all of that on there when they could have just hyperlinked that information? So yeah, absolutely. If you have the option of including a link to a portfolio, please make sure that you are doing that. So I think we had a few questions in the chat as well.
So I think the one that I saw in the chat,
Mhm.
what key elements should I double check before submitting my resume to ensure my agribusiness resume to ensure it meets employers' expectations and stands out in a competitive job market?
So when it comes to key elements, the first thing that I look at when I screen a resume is the formatting. You will be surprised at how many professionals, the content is strong in the resume, your experience, your credentials, everything is extremely strong in the resume. However, when we open it up, it's not aligned, right? The bullet points are all over, the months and the years are all over. So please ensure, before you send it off, before you attach it to an application and hit submit, that you take a look at your resume that you're sending out to the employer. Make sure that it at least looks nice to your eyes, right? It pleases your eyes. So make sure that it's formatted correctly. Ensure that you are, really analyzing the job posting, right? Is there anything that you have not highlighted that you have done and it's not showcased properly on your resume? Sometimes what I've been noticing is like a lot of employers will have like the qualifications or requirements, but then they will also have another like subcategory called like nice to have or preferred. If you have any of those, please make sure that you're highlighting them on your resume too, because it's like something extra that you can provide to the employer to show them that this is what I also come with. Um, Another thing I would probably focus on to make sure you stand out is even, before you send out an application, sometimes you might be asked a few questions on an application. Maybe it's about availability, um, experience. Please make sure that you're taking the time to answer these questions, especially if there's an asterisk. So if you're not able to move forward and submit your application without answering a certain or specific question, that means it's kind of important and the employer is keeping an eye out on this. So that's called a knockout question. So a lot of the times, I know it's a pain. You've already tailored your resume. Now you have to make an account and sign in and fill in all of these details. But that is actually what is going to make a big difference and whether or not you stand out.
Perfect. We do have a bunch of questions in the
Mhm.
Q&A. It says, I'm a student. What type of resume will be best for like new grads, people
Mhm.
who are still in school? So
Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
can take it, Katerina, if you want.
So I would say if you're a student and you really depends if you have what type of like I know that if you're new, you might not have a lot of work experience, but also as a student, you probably have a part-time job. So I would definitely start with like the current job that you have. If you don't have a job, like any previous job, so you can start building your resume. Try to include like skills, trying to include a section like a summary section where you can like talk a little bit about who you are. Really depends what program are you like enrolled in, where you want to go. Start if you don't have a lot to put on your resume, then it's time to start like building it, right? And you can do that by volunteer work. There are a lot of volunteer opportunities out there that you can go. A lot of them are online, so you don't have to go like to a place to volunteer. You can do it online. You can gain experience, and that experience can go on your resume. So really depends what you have. If you have a lot of if you have like experience to include on your resume, I will take chronological resume where you can like include a summary skill section, and then you can start with your most recent job, and then you can also include some previous like experience. If let's say you don't have a lot of experience, maybe you had like a job here and there, you can definitely include those like on your resume, but you can create a functional resume. Functional resume is where you focus on your skills rather than like chronologically adding your experience. So you'll say like you work maybe like as like a server, so you can like include customer service, you can include problem solving, you can include communication skills, and just talk a little bit about like that skill. You can just say communication skills and include a small blurb letting them know like how excellent you are, like and you have like great communication skills. So that's like a suggestion. And then there was I think like a hybrid option. Tiffany, think that was how it was called, where like it's a mix of both like chronological and the functional resume, where you do like talk a little bit about your job, but instead of like bullet points explaining what you did, you can just say maybe communication skills and include like how you gain like that skill. So you have a couple of options here. But if you're a student, definitely you can start with maybe like chronological resume. If you don't have like experience, maybe like it's good to start like volunteering or maybe get like a part-time job. Always remember the transferable skills as well, because if you work, let's say in retail, or if you work as a server, there are like a lot of skills that you can use at another job, especially like customer service, problem solving, communication, organizational skills. Those are skills necessary, I think, for any type of job. So don't forget about those skills and try to include them in your resume. Now, always remember the resume is like a selling tool. It's a marketing tool where you sell yourself to the employers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I see we have another question in the Q&A that talks about ATS. So do ATS systems recognize graphics, tables, and columns, or should they be avoided? So from my understanding, I believe they should be avoided. I know sometimes even with certain templates from Microsoft Office, even ATS do not pick up those templates that are being provided to us for free. So I would avoid them if possible. That is where maybe you can provide a portfolio link. If there's something you're trying to showcase, then you can say, you can click on here and you'll find more information. And then we will just put the responsibilities and maybe talk about how you executed that type of work on your resume. But yeah, I'm also thinking, if we were to include that on the resume, where would be the best spot for it? So it's kind of tricky because the traditional is like headline, summary, work experience, education. There may not be a spot available just for a table or a column, for example.
Okay, perfect. Another question. Is it
Mhm.
true that hiring managers and recruiters only read around 8 seconds of a resume because they have many resumes to read and you need to make your point fast? That is true. That is like really maybe 10, 12 seconds. But they are looking for keywords. They're looking for like job titles. So let's say if you're applying for like a marketing coordinator, right? They're going to look for marketing, like that's the keyword. So if they see that you were like a marketing coordinator, they will check your experience. If you're in marketing, they might lead the first or second bullet point. They quickly will scan through your resume, see how many years of experience you have, and they'll be like, okay, we can interview this person. And once they like like shortlist the candidates, they will spend more time, like reviewing your resume. They will ask you a bunch of questions during the interview as well. But that is true. They spend like 8, 10, 12 seconds, maybe 15 if they see something interesting. They're like, oh, let me like check this. But yeah, they spend like very little time reviewing your resume. So it is important your resume to be formatted very well, like words to stand out, like really good, like I said, formatting, and then job titles and not a lot of bullet points. If you add like 10 bullet points, nobody's gonna read that. I would say 7 max, but even 7 it's too much. I would like go with 5 bullet points.
Absolutely. Perfect. We have another question here. Is it true that if we are not currently employed, we won't be the first choice for a job, even if we meet all of the required criteria? So, this is not something that I have heard of. For me, if I'm thinking from a employer's perspective or HR perspective, I would not be too focused on, whether or not you are currently employed or not. Maybe if we're thinking about like a 10-year employment gap, maybe then that might be something. But I think as long as you have highlighted your transferable skills, your resume is polished, it's up to date, then I don't believe this would be a barrier. And then when you are at the interview stage, as long as you can speak on your, experience, you're focusing on your STAR method, I believe you should be good to go. So I haven't heard anything about employers being biased about whether or not you are employed or not. Things happen, right? People have gaps in their resumes. Sometimes you're sick, sometimes you're moving. So all of these things are definitely taken into account.
And I just want to say that with what's happening this past like few years after COVID, all like hiring managers and recruiters know that people lost their job. The IT sector after that like literally meltdown. There were so many layoffs. So I don't think that they're looking at this as something negative. Like as an HR manager, I don't like see it that way. Like Tiffany said, they might ask you why, like there's a like career gap or like employment gap. But if you are able to explain that you should have nothing to worry about. We have another question. Can you share an example of a particular sentence or specific type of formatting in a resume that impressed you beyond words? Well, I like this question. Like it made you think this person is definitely going to the next round. Um, hmm. I don't think that like there was like a particular sentence that made me, oh, like this is great. Like some people are really good with words, and like their summary might be like a good one to be like, oh, like this is amazing. I honestly like don't remember. And because probably like it's not that important. What I like when I look at resume, I just see like experience. I look for experience. I see like look for transferable skills, right? And especially if it's really hard like to find candidates, that's when like even like recruiters will go like and read more like when they receive the resumes. But I would say the things that impress me the most is first very clean, very organized resume where I can easily spot things that I'm looking for or words. Like, okay, when I see like a resume summary, just read like a couple of lines about that. Check their skills, what skills they have, like when they list. Like read their job title, see how like long they've been in this job. Read the first bullet point. Like if it's like well formatted, it's so easy like to get the things that you're looking for, to spot those things. So I think that's what impresses me the most when I see like very well organized and formatted resume where I can find like more about easily about their experience and skills. Tiffany, do you?
No, I left that one for you because I thought maybe, there was a resume that you have seen that really stood out for you. So yeah, I don't have anything else to contribute to this one. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and answer the next one. So this one is focused on ChatGPT. So I was hoping we'd get a few questions on this. So I was wondering, is it wise for candidates to utilize ChatGPT for tailoring resumes or cover letters? Does ATS flag that? So when it comes to like the for tailoring, I would definitely you can use it for sure, but now, it's a bit easier for employers to see that you're using this. I know, just off the top of my head, when I start seeing resumes, for some reason, the last word of a summary always goes down to a second line. I don't know if that's a really weird thing from ChatGPT that I've noticed is when I see someone's resume, they have an entire sentence and then one word will kind of go to the second bullet, and then it's the same thing like six times in a row, and I'm like, okay, that's a little strange. Sometimes I have seen someone accidentally paste their prompt into the resume. That's a big no. Or sometimes when you copy and paste from ChatGPT, the font is gray or there's a shadow. So just make sure you're keeping an eye out for these things, or if you look at your roles and you just recently started to use ChatGPT, you can identify very quickly which jobs you used it for and which jobs you didn't, right? Just to make sure everything is full and complete sentences. We've made use of all of the space in the resume. But yeah, it's definitely easy to spot, for sure. And I believe now that there are certain types of ATS that do have tools implemented to be able to flag whether or not you use ChatGPT. So just make sure that if you are using it, it's more of kind of like something to guide you and it's not creating your entire resume for you from scratch. And same thing with your cover letter as well. It's very easy to notice when the certain paragraphs are done a certain way that, okay, they use ChatGPT, which is great for polishing and helping with some ideas, but just make sure it's not just a, straight up copy paste into a Word document and saved as a PDF and submitted. So just make sure you are doing that mental screening there as well. Perfect. So I see we have lots of questions, which is good. We definitely have the time. So what are the most common resume mistakes that can negatively impact my chances of landing an interview, and how can I avoid them? So, the main thing I would probably focus on is the formatting of it, right? So, for me, if someone has attention to detail on their resume, yet when I open the resume up, the bullets are all over, the month is going on to a second line, and the years are, that is something that can definitely put a bad taste in the recruiter's mouth. So, just make sure you are taking a good look, a careful look at these resumes before you send them off. Even if the content is strong in the resume, I'm already focused on the fact that you want to work here and you can't even submit a resume that is formatted correctly, right? So just make sure that you're really keeping an eye out for these things. And always save as PDF. Word is great, but make sure you're sending every resume out as a PDF, unless maybe they specifically say submit this as a Word document. Focus only on PDF because then it's kind of locked, right? No formatting changes can happen, no moving around. If they open, they have PC and you're using Mac, none of that will happen. There's no room for error if we're using a PDF. So just make sure that you are doing that. But I'm not sure if Katerina, if you had anything you wanted to add in there for that.
Spelling and grammar mistakes.
Yes. Yep. 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 I totally forgot about that one. Yep.
That is very important. There are so many tools now available for free. You can use Grammarly, you can even use
Mhm.
ChatGPT, like to see if they maybe can rephrase a little bit. But definitely Grammarly is like a really good tool where you can check like if you have any grammar mistakes or spelling mistakes.
Yeah, thank God for Grammarly. It's
Yeah.
definitely saved me honestly every single day since I've downloaded it. Added, you can get it
Yeah.
on your phone as an app. You can add it as an extension on Chrome. Yeah, that's a really good one. Perfect.
We have a question here. Most of the students have part-time work that it's not related to students' field. In that case, we don't have relevant experience in the field. What key things should be added to the resume to make it noticeable? So I think we talked a little bit about this. So focus on the transferable skills, definitely. And for now, if you don't have like any other experience, you need to build your resume. So you need to add your current experience. Even though let's say it's like in retail or like you're a server, right? That doesn't matter, but try to see if you can find, let's say, an unpaid co-op or internship. Definitely try the volunteer path. Like I know a lot of people don't consider that, but you can gain a lot of experience volunteering. There's so many organizations that like look for volunteers. I volunteered for I think like 2-3 years at Save the Water. So Save the Water is a nonprofit or US based organization. They do have like a different type of roles from HR to marketing to design, and everything is online and you do actual work. So it's not like, oh, you do an actual work and you put that on your resume. So if you see that you have part-time work that it's not related to your field, try to see if you can find like a part-time job somewhere or like volunteer or like internship. I know that internship and co-ops are hard to find nowadays, especially because they're saved for the students who need credits, and co-op and internship it's part of their like program. But I had a friend that she just like kept applying to a lot of companies in her city, and then she was able to find like a part-time HR job while she was in school studying HR. So also you need to try like some different approach, not just Indeed and LinkedIn. Try to see what companies are in your area and try to find the HR manager or the hiring manager, and then try to send them an email with your resume. Just say, hey, I'm looking for a part-time job. I'm currently a student. If you need some help in your department, I'm willing to do that. Feel free to reach out to me. You're not losing anything. You might gain actually something. You might get like a part-time job. So you need to try these different things to build your resume. But honestly, like I think I don't have like any other tips. Like Tiffany, do you have anything else to add?
Not really. Yeah, not much else.
Okay. Yeah, and then volunteer. I will send the links of some
Mhm.
like volunteer websites so
Yeah.
you can check them out.
Yeah, volunteering, I would say, is definitely one of the best ways to gain those skills and experience. Plus, you might gain a reference, right? Maybe you have a really great relationship with your manager or supervisor. And who knows, right? Some fields are very small, word of mouth. Maybe they know a place that's hiring and they can refer you. So, you may not see the benefit right away. You may not see it today or tomorrow, but long term, it is something that does pay off. Another question that we have in the Q&A is, what is the best font and style for a resume? So that's definitely a good question. Mine personally, it's that very boring Times New Roman. I just feel like it's reliable. You cannot go wrong with that. But some people, they do like to switch it up a little bit. Arial, I find is good. Calibri is another good one. So I wouldn't try anything too fancy. Just try to keep it basic when it comes to the font and style, something that's easy to read as well. But yeah, those are the three I would say that I usually see clients using.
Another question, what would be the timeline of waiting after applying? If someone applied 2-3 days ago after the job is posted, should we wait until the job is taken down of the website? It's been too long that I have applied for jobs. Okay, yeah. So like everybody has a different timeline. Some companies they put a a closing date, the deadline for the candidates to apply, and then after the deadline, they will sit and they will review all the application. There are people who are reviewing resumes as they come, right? If let's say they don't have a deadline, and then the job posting is open until they find the best candidate, and they will review the resume as they come. If you don't hear from them, your resume might not be selected to move on to the next round. But also you have those companies where they take 3 months, 4 months to respond. So you might be able like to get, like even a call after 2, 3 months. Like it happened. I had a friend who applied for a job and I haven't heard from them for 7 months. And after 7 months, they reached out to her. And she actually got the job after that. So like it happens. But usually like if you don't hear like after like couple of weeks, I would say probably your resume was not selected, so just keep applying. But everybody has like a different time frame, so it's really difficult to tell because they all kind of like have different recruitment style.
Perfect. Thank you. I see a question here and it's a bit further down. And it is asking, what does it exactly mean to tailor a resume? So, I mean, honestly, that is a valid question, especially if we're saying, tailor. What on earth does that really mean for your application and resume? So, when I think of tailoring, I think of opening a job description, reading from start to end. What is the company about? What will I be doing in this role? And what is the employer expecting from me to be able to contribute? What experience should I have? What soft skills should I have? And then taking a look at my resume and saying, how can I pull certain keywords and aspects from the job description and then input these into my resume. So we don't want to do like copy paste and put things over. We want it to make sense. Sometimes with some job descriptions, they may include like communication, organize, discipline. They might have like a chunk of words like that. That's something that you can use in your resume. And it's just about those transferable skills, right? So maybe it's about wording something a certain way, making sure you can swap words out with each other that makes sense, right? And then once you have done that, you've taken as much as you can from the job description and inputted it onto your resume. We want to make another read through. Does this flow correctly? Does this make sense if someone else were to read it? And you can even run it through like an ATS, like job scan, for example. You can copy the job description and paste that as well as your resume and see what is being generated for you as in terms of a match rate. So yeah, tailoring to me just means really analyzing the posting with like a different lens, right? You're really, really going in with like a fine-tooth comb and understanding what is expected of you with each line and making sure that your resume reflects this information.
There is another great question that I see here. It
Mhm.
says, "Hi, ladies. If I choose not disclose a recent job on my resume because of how briefly I stayed, and it didn't turn out to be what was discussed, and I was being let go, is it that a bad thing when they do the Sterling check?" So if I'm under like if the Sterling check, when they do a background check, they only do with the jobs that they see on the resume. There's no way they're gonna find out that you were in this job if you didn't tell them, or you didn't or if you like didn't include on the resume. So it was like a very brief. There's nothing wrong with like not including it, but in the end of the day, it's your choice, right? You choose what you want to like add on your resume. But if it's like a very brief like thing and it didn't work out, like it's okay, things happen, and you don't have to include it on your resume. You can just like keep the job before that as your last employment. They're not going to find out if you like if you didn't share that with them. I don't think the Sterling like background checks, they go like and put your name so they can see like all of your experience. I think what they do is you give them the job, the company name and the person, and they will do like a background check. So I don't think there is anything bad if you don't include it. But again, in the end of the day, it's up to you. But also just remember you have to remove it from LinkedIn if you have that on there.
Mhm. Perfect. We have a question here that talks about the services we provide, if we provide personal resume checks or if it's only through the workshop. So we do have that as an option on the website. We can put that in the chat for you as well. It is paid, so it is something that you will have to pay for, but I will have to double check on what the cost is for that. So yeah, if you do, I know we have lots of questions in the chat as well, in the webinar chat, in the Q&A, but if you do want something a little bit more kind of personalized and one-on-one, then I would recommend booking in a session. There is a question here about cover letters. So, should you always include a cover letter with a resume? You heard if a company doesn't ask for a cover letter, you should not include it. In previous webinars, they recommend that you should always submit a cover letter with a resume. Which one do you recommend? So, this is one of those instances where I shared, everyone has a personal bias, right? They might want your resume to be 1 page, 2, 3, or it should look this way and not that way. So same thing when it comes to cover letters. For me, if the company has an asterisk next to cover letter, then I know for sure I have to submit a cover letter. If it's not so much of a demand and they kind of have it as something optional, it's really up to you. If this is something that, a company that you really, really want to work with, the mission, the values align with your personal ones, and this is somewhere you really want to work, then by all means use that option to provide more detail about yourself. But I do find that there's been a decline in cover letter requirements, right? It's not as popular as it used to be. If you kind of have like a general template and you swap these words in and out based off the job description, or again, if you are willing to put the extra time because this is a company you're very passionate about and you want to work with them, then by all means go ahead. But there are some people who will feel differently, right? So again, see what works best for you. Maybe for 1 month, you want to consistently use a cover letter and then just make sure you're keeping track of, am I getting more traction on my applications when I include a cover letter? Then maybe you want to try not including one. See what works best for you as well. But yeah, cover letters definitely optional, but I would also say just make sure you have a strong LinkedIn as well, right? Especially if you are providing this information on your resume, like usually you have phone number, email, LinkedIn. Make sure your profile is up to date, right? So that's also just as important to me when it comes to, what you're sending over and submitting to the employer.
There is a really good question here, and
Mhm.
also like a little bit of like a story. So I'm
Mhm.
a finance student and looking for opportunities in banking industry, and I have applied to 1,000 jobs, tailoring the resume each and every time, but I get those rejection emails every time. And a few months back, I heard one of the employees saying that the job postings are just for formality. 99% of the time, they hire people internally through references, so it feels useless sometimes. Also, I have seen people getting hired internally with resumes full of errors. And the guy who was hired had no finance experience and was from engineering background. So this is where the power of networking it's like comes to it's very important like to network and to know people, so it's easier like to get recommended to get a job. But I have to say, like, not really depends on the role, and really depends like where you're applying, right? Yes, like big banks like TD, RBC, they do like move people internally, but they also hire like external candidates. It might be because you're still a student. If you haven't graduated, that's why they're not reaching out to you, because they need a full-time commitment to a full-time role. So if, let's say, you're in your second year and you're not like graduating soon, that's why like you're getting rejected. That's why you're not getting like the jobs, because they're looking more for like full-time roles. I rarely see like part-time for banking. I see part-time in if you work in a branch as a tailor. So that might be the reason. And if you see that maybe applying doesn't work for you, try to like make connections. Try to do like informational interviews where you will connect with people on LinkedIn just to chat with them. Just say, hey, I'm interested in the sector. I just want to hear about your career path. You're not selling yourself. You're not giving them your resume. You're just making those connections. So maybe, like that will get you some, like opportunities where you would be referred, or like they will share with you a posting that just opened, so you can apply. So if like applying is not working, maybe like try that like different route. But also, if you're still in school, if you're not graduating anytime soon, that might be the main reason why you're not getting like any interviews.
Thank you. I'm just going to go ahead and run through a few of the slides that we still have left, and then we can jump right back into some Q&A. So the Devant platform. So I'm hoping a lot of you have the login information for this. I would highly recommend signing in, playing around a little bit when it comes to the resume tools that they have available. I believe your school should have provided the login information for this as well. So if you haven't had an opportunity to upload your resume, um, and explore this a little bit, please make sure that you do. Like I mentioned earlier, Devant definitely uses AI in terms of career development, and they were mentioning this, way before everyone else was into AI. They were ahead of the game. So if you have not already, please make sure that you check this out and that you are taking advantage of what is being provided. A few upcoming workshops. I see March on there already, which is insane to me. So next Wednesday, they will have an immigration Q&A. So if you are maybe on work permit status, maybe you have a few friends or colleagues who might be in a certain situation and you have questions, please make sure that you attend. The following Wednesday, which is February 19th, there's a career coach Q&A, so it's just a drop-in. I think I will be there in that one. So, it's just a session very similar to this one, but it's not necessarily focused on anything specific, like how this one is about resumes. That is an option. If you have any other questions related to the job search process, you can go ahead and ask away. On the 26th, there will be another immigration Q&A, and then on Wednesday, March 5th, you will have the option of attending a session where a recruiter will be present to answer any questions you have. And then at the bottom there, highlighted so nicely for us, is the Get Hired at Home event, which will be taking place on February 20th. So, just a little bit more information on this. So, I believe these are the stats from 2024. So, there were over 200 interviews that were completed, tons of different employers, and lots of jobs available for you to apply for. So, please make sure that you do mark this in your calendars and that you're available to attend as well. We have a little bit of some more information from someone who was able to attend, I think, last time around. So they landed their dream internship by attending this event. So before you sign on here, please make sure your LinkedIn profiles are also up to date. If you want to send out any invites afterwards, make sure you have a beautiful picture. You're smiling, professional background. You're not using your passport pictures. You've clicked you've selected a banner. Your headline is strong, summaries up to date, work experience, education is all on there. So please make sure you're presenting with strong LinkedIn profiles as well. A few of the past employers and partners. So I believe a few of these will also be here during that session as well. So if you've maybe had an eye and you wanted to work at some of these places, then definitely, make sure you're there and make sure you're presenting as your best self. So this is just to follow up. I believe we had a few questions about the sessions that we are providing and how you can go about booking someone. So there is the one-on-one career coaching. So I believe that is about 1 hour solely focused on you, hearing a little bit about your journey with your job search, what's going on right now, and what you hope for yourself in your future. So we can do like a LinkedIn screening. We'll come up with some next steps as to what you may want to implement to see some traction, some interviews, some offers coming your way. We also offer a LinkedIn profile audit. So maybe, you want to focus on LinkedIn a little bit more. You want to put some more time into this platform. Then we can also do a review solely just for that. And then if you're looking for more just resume and cover letter support, they do offer that as well, which is just like a little bit more specific rather than, you know, taking an entirely different look and approach at your strategy. So yeah, please feel free to go ahead and book. We have tons of wonderful coaches on there. You can book with myself or Katarina as well. So congratulations. This was the final event that was required to be eligible to attend the Get Tired at Home event. I believe it's just saying there, make sure you're keeping your eye on your inbox, make sure you're checking your spam folder as well, whether or not it is from Devant. Lots of emails do end up in there just because it's someone that maybe you don't usually communicate with, or they're communicating or sending an email from a different platform. So your inbox may think it's spam. That happens to me quite a bit with clients. I call them and I say, well, you didn't apply for this job I sent you, or did you see what I said? And then they check the spam folder, and there you go. So I believe we have 6 minutes left. I guess we will just go back to the Q&A, but just wanted to make sure that all of you were aware of the services that are available, and to flag the Get Hired at Home event.
There is one question here that
Mhm.
it's interesting. It says, I recently got my LinkedIn invitation accepted by a recruiter after a few months of pending. How can I communicate to them that I'm still interested in the role and that I was aiming for in the first place? So that role might be still open or it might be filled. But whatever, like, doesn't matter. Despite, like, I would say send them a very quick like LinkedIn message. Just say like, thank you so much for accepting, like my invitation. And honestly, because they're recruiters and you already applied for a role, I will just say, I'm looking for a job and this is what I'm looking for. If you have if you have like any job similar to the experience that I have, feel free to reach out to me. I can also send you my resume so you can better, like review and understand my experience. So on one hand, you're not sending them the resume or not like asking right away. But on the other hand, you're kind of like telling them, hey, I'm still looking for a job. If you have something that is like like applies to my experience, like I can send you my resume. So in that way, you are like telling the recruiter that you're looking for a job, and then if they want to reach out to you, they will.
Perfect. Another question here in the Q&A is, how important is the use of references in our resume? So I know it used to be common practice to include on the bottom, references will be available upon request. I had that in my resume for a long time, but it's not mandatory anymore. It's kind of a given and obvious that if an employer is willing to move forward with you, they are going to ask you for your references. So if you have that in your resume, you can go ahead and remove it. I've also seen resumes where the person is providing like 3 references somewhere along their resume. That doesn't need to be added in there. We want to wait for the employer to request this information from us, and that is when we will share that with them.
There's another question that says, what if my experience is not aligned with the job description? Should I still apply? So this is really interesting. My question is why your experience is not aligned, like with the job description. Are you changing careers? And that's why, are you like a new student where like you are like in a field that requires like specific skills? So there are like couple of things there that might be happening, but I would say still apply, especially if you're enrolled in school. And I saw some questions about this as well. If you're like in school, please add the education on top of your resume. So then the employer can see, or the hiring manager or the recruiter can see that you are a new grad, that you're still in school. A lot of companies want to hire new grads. And with you putting your education on the first page, they will see that you are like either graduating or you graduate recently, or like you are kind of like still in, like in school. So they will see that you are soon will be a new grad. If you are like applying after like finishing school, same thing. Your experience should be on top of the page so they know that you're a new grad. A lot of people hire new grads without any experience, right? So I would say still apply and try like to find ways to gain experience in the field that you want to go. I know that it's hard, but like some of the things that we shared today was volunteering, asking and see like if you can find like a part-time job, applying, cold calling. There are different ways, like I said, and just don't spend a lot of like most of your time on LinkedIn and Indeed.
Absolutely. There's one question here. It says, can I add my part-time job experience to my resume, which is not really related to my field? So I would recommend adding that on there. It will fill in any gaps in your resume, and it also helps the employer better understand, what skills you're coming with, right? So thankfully, when it comes to resumes, we have an option to kind of um, I would not say like manipulate the information, but we have the opportunity to highlight our transferable skills on there. So I would say no matter what job or background you came from, there's always going to be a way for us to showcase, yes, this is what I was doing there, but I will also be able to apply this to your company and for this specific role. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Please add the jobs in that you have. If you're working somewhere, make sure it's on your resume, but just make sure you try to highlight more on the transferable skills rather than, I know this isn't related, but going on a tangent. Just make sure you really try to focus on what you can bring and what you learned from that job to this current and new employer.
And I think we have 1 more minute. So there's one more question here. After a job interview, how long should I wait before sending a thank you letter or email? I would say send it on the same day. So after the interview is done, after a couple of hours, go ahead and send that like thank you email, and don't wait like next week, right? Or next day. It's really nice because they will be still like, like not thinking, but it's still fresh. The interview was done after a couple of hours. So it will be like a nice touch to say, like, hey, thank you so much for interviewing me. I really learned a lot like during our call. And it's 8 o'clock. I'm really sorry that we didn't have time to answer all of your questions, but we did have a really big group today, and I realized why. Just so they can, and it's amazing that everybody like attended the session. We have career cafe sessions or like Q&A sessions every month. Those are like really great sessions where you can come and ask all of your questions. I also know the band has like small sessions in their Get Hired event where you can go. They have like an hour where you can go and ask like any type of questions. So definitely take advantage of those. And you can get also like another opinion from like different coaches, because it's nice to hear like what people think about resumes and cover letters and job search, because we all have different experience and different perspectives.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of you who attended this evening. Wishing you all the best in your job search. Keep going. I know it's hard. But yeah, just try to stay positive. Take care of yourselves during this time as well. And wishing you all the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.